And welcome back. Thank you for staying with us on Punchline. Joining me now on set to my immediate right is Gerishon Njogou. He's a small business owner. And next to him is Kwame Owino, an economist. And you're both welcome to the program. Gerishon, I want to start with you. What have the last 12 months looked like for you in business? And what business are you in?
So thank you for the opportunity. I do car importation. My company is called Bitmark Motors. And actually the last 6 months have been quite difficult because we do get cash buyers. We call them cash buyers. Someone comes and says they want to import a car for business or just their normal use. And most of the time cash buyers are the ones who make business more easy. And basically like last month and on August I didn't have any. So when we as a company, when we bring cars, because that's importing on behalf, if we bring a car and we try and sell, then we only get what we call asset finance. We're financed by banks or microfinances. So as well, you'll start the process. It takes like a month or 2 weeks if it's fast. And then in between the bank will say, hey, sorry, we can only give this guy 50%. Why? Maybe because his statements are not that good, or if he's in an office, maybe they didn't give him the what do you call it's like assuring that the guy will still work here. So yeah, it's been difficult. I wouldn't lie. It's not like last year. Wow. And when we do have cash buyers, like I'll say again, yeah, business is quite good. And yeah, that's what we're really grappling with right now. And
you believe, don't you, that the removal of this interest rate cap would be beneficial for your business? Yeah,
definitely, because many people take loans for different things. So let's say I own a hardware, right? Hardware owner, and I'm taking a loan to buy cement and my whatever I'll stock the office with or the shop, and I'll also buy a car. And so let's say I'll put let's say 1.5 M for a small truck, so that I'll do my own businesses. So I won't get a full loan for such a business, maybe just to stock it, but not buy other accessories. So that happens only when you're given unsecured loans. Right. And that have been, nobody will give you right now. Even Shylocks wouldn't want.
Shylocks? Yeah. I'm shying away from that.
Yeah, so yeah, that's not been happening at all.
Right. Yeah. Kwame, what does this tell you about how the economy is doing, and particularly, private sector, where it was hoped that, they would step up to the plate with all this ease of doing business reports?
Well, I think Gerishon's case tells us that, or rather it illustrates to us the connection between government behavior and the real economy. So we have government that has been borrowing like crazy for the last 6 years, increasingly at very high interest rates. Because of that, it's freezing money, or rather it's picking all the money that banks would lend to everybody else. It was not helped by the rate cap, which was approved. So basically, money is not available to people outside government, and government is picking all of it, using it to pay loans and also buying some more. So it squeezes. And the second point is just that government has huge arrears at all levels. People think it's only counties, national government and counties. Hundreds of billions that they owe. And because they're short of cash, they're not paying on time. And that affects the ability of other people to actually service other loans or to be able to buy back stock. So we are stuck in this difficult situation in which there's an equilibrium in which everybody who owes the other is not. So the velocity and movement of money from one person to the other. So you have people who would like to invest in their businesses, but they're unable to do that because they're not able to buy. And banks as well see the risks, and they know that maybe they can lend to you. They'd be willing to lend, but at 14%. But we are told that it can only be 13.5%. Right. So they decide not to lend. So all that creates a spiral.
And as all this is happening, we have, about R1 trillion shillings in loans that will be due in 2020.
Yes.
I don't even know how to phrase the question. What will that look like? What will that mean in an economy where money is already not circulating?
Okay. Government's collection, the public sector's collection through the KRA, it collects about 4 or 5 billion shillings every day. Okay, our spending is close to about 7 or 8. But basically, what we are saying is that if you have to pay R1 trillion next year, what that means is that if we continue to collect 5 trillion per day, for exactly 200 days, we'll be doing nothing. but just paying the debt,
Right.
which means we only have excess income for another 150 days. That's not sustainable.
Wow.
So unless those debts are actually, the tenure of those debts are expanded, which means
Is it possible to restructure them?
Yes, you can. You definitely. It's painful, but the restructuring. In fact, let's not just say that. And let's not say that. Is it possible? We have no option. We are going to have to restructure unless we default. And if you default, you go down a very, very deep dark hole. So we have to. It's just a question of when and whether we have the courage to actually speak about how to restructure them.
And we've been getting your questions in for Kwame. Let's take a look at your questions and comments.
Yes.
Here you have from Albert Oyugi. He says, what do you have to say about the scrapping of capped interest rates? Is that going to be a positive move?
Yes, it's going to be a positive in the sense that, as I said, government has two options. It has monetary policy, which is how what the central bank does, and the fiscal policy, which is what government spends. They are running out of options regarding fiscal policy. So obviously they have, and the interest rate gap was making it difficult for monetary policy to work by government shifting interest rates one way or the other. So if it's opened, that's fine. I am not convinced, however, that the argument that if the interest rate is scrapped tomorrow means that there'll be more money available for SMEs. That's the part I find a problem in. It's actually a lie. But interest rates cap.
Don't be too hopeful yet.
Not yet. Some people will, but not necessarily all. So we should scrap the interest rates cap because it's affecting monetary policy flexibility. But let's not lie that the reason is because suddenly there'll be a lot of money available to everybody who wants to borrow. And
Njogou, are you not also concerned? You know, you remember what occasioned these caps to begin with. The fact that banks were, I mean, we didn't want to use the term predatory, but really, you know, interest rates were through the roof. People still couldn't be able to get loans or be able to repay them. Don't you think banks will go back to the same behavior?
Not really, because, okay, what I think is, at least give that opportunity. You can't say, someone is bad, so everybody is bad. And again, if you look at the numbers, like now, my business, if I talk about my business, I'm not even talking about cars alone, and like now I used to work in a media house, and that time at least I could get money to fund my own business, right? And now that I'm out, I don't have any income, I can go to a bank and ask for a loan, so I did. And my statements wouldn't even allow them to even think about anything. So yeah, I wouldn't say, even if some are bad, I would still want to listen to ones that would really help me out, right?
Okay.
In my own business and as well as my customers as well.
So you're hopeful?
Yeah.
You're hopeful. Okay, let's take a look at another viewer question, if we could get up for you. If Kenya fails to pay the Chinese debt, where we have seen the current regime going on borrowing spree, are we headed to a second colonization? Do you see China taking over Kenya? That's from Bukusu Warrior. Kwame, what do you think?
No, I don't think China is interested in that. In fact, the Chinese were very clever in restructuring the SGR debt. We are going to pay anyway. And they've locked in funds, and especially revenues coming from the Ports Authority. If we do not, we'll be able to pay. We'll just pay. Nevertheless, I don't think they're interested in managing another country 4,000 kilometers away from Beijing. So those fears are not, but the pressure they may put on us to ensure that that money is paid will be felt by every taxpayer and every business in Kenya.
So in your opinion, especially with this debts that will be due, what will 2020 look like for Kenyan families economically?
Well, I think first, let's give credit to the fact that Kenyan families are very resilient and also very, we take it on the chin and we move. So that's part of what this government is lucky about. In other places, the society will just disintegrate. I think it's becoming increasingly evident that it cannot be business as usual. Some adjustments will be made. They'll be painful. I don't think there's scope for it, even though there's pressure on government to raise some taxes. So one of the things we'll see a more intrusive KRA coming to businesses. If you have a small problem, somebody will call you, come to do your audits and everything else. So all that will continue to be, but it's part of just that adjustment that is going to be difficult.
Right. Njogou, what are your own, when you think of your business, and maybe you'll tell us a little bit about the plans you had for it going into next year. Do you feel you're on target? Are you going to have to rethink your business?
Okay, for now, I wouldn't say I'll rethink about it, but I'll have to restrategize on probably I'll not bring as many cars I used to. But as well, I think in terms of even not finances, I think there's a lot that is affecting us as well. So in terms of what I think, just like a normal person, like I'm not an economist or anything, but the government is really pressing us a lot in terms of, even if the people that I sell cars to, some of them are just small scale traders as well. Like I was talking about hardware. And the other day, remember in Yamakema, and people really had a hard time. And those people are the ones who really like make us move, right?
How is the government pressing you?
In terms of if a customer doesn't buy a car, I'm out of business. 2, if I talk about cars right now, we'll still start about the 5-year thing. And just to digress a bit about the whole finance thing, is that if you look at cars, and let's say you earn, and I don't want to talk about your salary or anything, but please don't. I don't know, but I'd like to say if now you earn, let's say just earn less 100,000, right? And maybe a equity manager in equity or in KCB or in bank earns, let's say 150 Gs. And you also want to drive a Prado. I'll give an example of the Prado. So a Prado, I'll sell it to you like 3.5M to 4.5M, depending on sunroof and all that, right? And the government really wants us to go back to buying newer cars and buying manufactured cars, right? So now the question is, will you afford to buy that
There go my
Land Cruiser?
Prado dreams. I hear you. Yeah.
And then now the person who now works under you, let's say a person works like earns like 80, 60 Gs, right? Also has babies, has a family, and would like to drive a car as well. So we want to buy a Vitz. A Vitz goes for 800 Gs here, right? If you want to buy a new one, probably you will go for 2.5M. So how long will it take that person to, So such things I think they should look at. I'm not
no, but you're Kenyan, so you're a business owner, right?
Yeah, so I think they should really try and ease up on such things and try and focus much on other things, if it's agriculture, tourism, and the rest.
Right, okay. Kwame, finally, and we'll take a last question, but just in terms of cutting spending, I think IEA, the Institute of Economic Affairs, has made some proposals, and we started off with a 3 trillion shilling budget, isn't it, for the next financial year. Is that something we necessarily need? And if you were to start cutting, what do you cut? There's big 4 projects to be implemented and all sorts of things going on.
Okay. 2 years ago, we went through some four specific ministries and went through some things that government buys. So we went through stationery, phones, and all that. But let me just cut it down so we found out that comparing to most farms in Kenya, so let me just say the IEA is small, we're only 25, but our phone bills over the last 12 years, have dropped in real time by 60%. Phone bills.
Right.
Government data, at least the data that is declared in the estimates, tells you that in that same time, the amount of money that government is spending on calls and telecommunication services has doubled. While the call prices per minute have reduced, internet, whatever. So that tells you something about the incremental budgeting. So we found out that one specific parastatal in Kenya, for instance, has about 120 employees, and yet their phone bill, as declared in the estimates, is 22,000 shillings per person per month.
Did you say 22,000?
22,000 shillings per person per month. Per person.
In a parastatal?
Yes. It manages stadiums, so you can tell who it is. That definitely just tells you that there's a lot of wastage from which, if we just decided to save without, and I'm not talking about people's salaries, I'm talking about how much you call and stuff like that. So if you just manage telecommunication services, other communication services, what they buy in terms of newspapers and all that, there's a lot of savings, and our estimation is that government can actually save up to 500 billion from just making those savings without necessarily talking about the labor side or even fraud.
So it can be done.
It can be done.
I thank you both for your views. We're taking a short break. We're back with the sports and later our punchline after this.